They said the hollow house had been empty for decades, a lonely silhouette on the edge of Blackwood Hill. Its windows were blind with dust. Its roof sagged like a tired old man, and the doors were swollen shut from years of rain and rot. But when 19-year-old Daniel Crowe saw the faint glow of a lantern flicker in a second-floor window one late October night, curiosity got the better of him. He had to see for himself what secrets were still breathing behind those walls. The locals warned him, of course. Old Mrs. Fenley from the corner store, with eyes that saw more than they let on, told him no one went near the hollow house after dark. Some folks said they heard footsteps on the porch when there was no wind. Others swore they saw a shape in the upstairs window during a full moon. But Daniel, a journalism student home for the holidays, smelled a story, a real story, one that could finally get his name in the local paper. So, armed with his camera, a flashlight, and a flask of coffee, he set out just as the sun bled out behind the twisted trees. The path was overgrown, and the air was thick with the smell of damp earth and rust. Dead leaves whispered under his boots, and the forest seemed to press in on all sides, swallowing sound. When he finally reached the sagging iron gate, half buried in ivy, he paused. The gate creaked open on its own, as if welcoming him in. Daniel tried to laugh, but the sound caught in his throat. The house loomed ahead, bigger than he remembered. Its face was cracked and veined with vines. Its windows were black pits, except for one faint pulse of yellow light, like a dying heartbeat. He lifted his camera, and the flash exploded against the darkness. For just a split second, he saw Aitor thought he saw it, the shape of a woman, pale and still, her head tilted as if watching him from the window. He shook his head. Just a reflection, just his imagination. He stepped onto the porch, which groaned under his weight. The front door, warped and stubborn, gave way with a low moan when he pushed. Inside, the air was heavy with dust and decay. Sheets covered old furniture like sleeping ghosts. He clicked on his recorder. Daniel Crowe, Blackwood Gazette, exploring the hollow house. Approximately 9:17 p.m., rumors of haunting, unexplained lights, reported. He trailed off, feeling foolish. And then he heard it. Upstairs, a door creaked open. Slow, deliberate. Probably wind, he muttered. But there was no wind. He forced himself up the groaning staircase. His flashlight beam danced across a framed photograph on the landing, a family portrait. A man in a dark suit, a woman in a lace dress, and a little girl clutching a doll. The man's eyes, they seemed to follow him. Just shadows, he whispered to himself. At the top of the stairs, a hallway stretched into darkness. The light he'd seen from outside was coming from a half-open door at the very end. He crept forward, the floorboards complaining with every step. He pushed the door wider. It was an old bedroom. On a small table sat an oil lantern, its flame burning bright and clean. It looked freshly lit. He picked it up. It was warm. That's when he saw the carving in the tabletop beneath it. One word, gouged deep into the wood. Leave. His throat went dry. Just then, the entire house seemed to sigh around him, and from downstairs, the front door slammed shut. Daniel spun around, and something cold brushed past him, like a breath of winter air. The lantern in his hand flickered violently and went out. Total darkness. His own flashlight flickered twice, then died. For a long second, there was only silence. Then, a new sound. Soft footsteps, just outside the doorway, slow, dragging. He fumbled with his flashlight, smacking it against his palm. It flickered back to life, illuminating the hallway. It was empty. But at the far end, by the stairs, stood the little girl from the photo. Her eyes were wide and empty. Who are you? He whispered. She tilted her head, her lips moving without a sound. Then, she turned and vanished like smoke. Daniel ran after her. Wait. When he reached the stairs, the air was thick and cold. Halfway down, a whisper slithered right into his ear. You shouldn't have come. He spun around. Nothing. Just the landing and the family portrait, now hanging perfectly straight. But the faces, they had changed. The man's mouth was open in a silent scream. The woman's eyes were black holes, and the little girl's face was just a gray smear. Panic clawed at his throat. He stumbled down into the foyer. The front door was bolted from the inside. He hadn't locked it. He threw the bolt, yanked the handle. It wouldn't budge. He tried the windows, but they were sealed tight. Who's here? He yelled, his voice cracking. From the hallway, a child's giggle echoed, soft and wet. He turned and saw a trail of small, muddy footprints leading to the basement door. It was slightly ajar. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his flashlight caught a glint of metal on the steps below. Something was moving. He descended into the cold, the air thick with mildew and something foully sweet. His light swept across the room and stopped on a large wooden crate. Dark, wet stains pooled on the floor beneath it. He crouched, lifted his camera, and the flash revealed claw marks raked deep into the concrete wall. As his flashlight flickered, he heard it, a slow, scraping sound from inside the crate, like fingernails on wood, then a whisper. Help me. It was a weak, pleading voice. Please, let me out. His hands shaking, he reached for a pry bar. Who's there? The voice whimpered again. It hurts. He pried one nail loose, then another. The lid creaked open just enough. What he saw made him drop the flashlight. It looked like a young woman, but her limbs were bent at impossible angles. She smiled, her mouth full of blood. "You came back?" she hissed. The crate burst open. Daniel screamed as the thing climbed out, its bones cracking as it crawled toward him. He scrambled up the stairs, slamming the basement door, but the thudding followed, slow and steady. He ran for the kitchen, but the windows were sealed. Shadows stretched from every corner, and whispers swirled around him. "You shouldn't have come." He tripped over something soft. The little girl's doll, its porcelain face cracked. When he looked up, the girl was standing right in front of him, tears streaking her gray face. "You can't leave," she whispered. "She won't let you." "Who?" he gasped. Before she could answer, her eyes rolled back, and she dissolved into dust. The house fell silent. Then, a familiar voice whispered his name from right behind him. "Daniel?" He turned slowly. All the lights in the house burst, plunging him into darkness. As his eyes adjusted, he saw them dozens of ghostly faces floating in the air. The man, the woman, the girl, and crawling across the ceiling toward him, the creature from the crate. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another terrifying tale. Stay safe out there.